Hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Thursday, the 24th day of August, 2023. Well, 43 years ago today I became a mother, so happy birthday to my firstborn. I did this on Monday. I warned you I would do this again on Thursday, so the actual day of. Well, you know. A huge milestone in a woman's life when she becomes a mother for the first time. Oh, oops. Well, they all went through my fingers, and there's not one left. Let me try this again, and we'll take a rune here for today. From the Elder Futhark bag, the As Above side of things. There we go. Well, we have Perthrow. Perthrow is about fate. It's about who controls your fate. Are you going to do that? Or are you going to give that away to somebody else? It's the 14th rune of the Elder Futhark, so it implies change. 14 reduces to 5 as a numerology. So it implies change. It's reflects the water element, so there's the idea of cause and effect, healing, understanding, basically synchronicity. It can indicate childbirth. Directionality is important. This is open to birth. This is open to death. This is open to childbirth, the womb. This is a cauldron. But basically, when we see Perthrow, we're thinking about who is controlling your fate, and is it the cause and effect of things? Is it a situation? Is it an individual? Or are you doing it? Are you the one in control of that? All too often, I think we get caught up into the idea of situations controlling us. It's like, well, what else could I do? Well, maybe that's true, you know. But sometimes we give up too soon and we stop thinking about how, because at least maybe we can control how we feel about it or how we behave within the situation, how we see it. So at least if you can do that much, then that's a start in getting you to think about not being a victim to circumstance. Let's see. But sometimes, you know, circumstances do control us. So I don't know. Here we have Acquisitio for the below side of things from Geomancy. Acquisitio is about gain. It's increase of some kind. And if we're so I suppose it's possible that you'll have a variety of situations that will bring that idea of who controls your fate to the surface. You can think about it that way. But you have passive influences for fire at the top, active for air, passive for water, and active for earth. So basically, it's not necessarily a financial gain. It's literally an energetic type of a rune. Its complement is a missio, so you would just turn it over, and that would be a missio. And so that would be loss or decrease. So you could have some increase in opportunities to decide how you control your fate. Increase maybe in synchronicities, you could say, maybe today. That might be another way to look at it. You might see increased understanding today of the bigger picture. There may be things that come into play today that give you that. It could be expressing the fate of something else that you're observing. There's some things going on today in the country that could apply to that. Someone, the fate of some other people and their behavior. You might be standing back watching the cause and effect of all that. It could be something like that even today, because that's happening today. And by tomorrow. Or there may be some people getting arrested if they don't show up by a certain time tomorrow, right? So we have some of that going on. So whether it's, specifically in your personal life or something on a grander scale, we have some interesting issues have to do with cause and effect. People want to do what they do and they don't want to accept responsibility for the outcome. Well, for them, the energy of Perthrow is quite strong today. So anyhow, let's see. I've cut the deck and let's see what we have card wise. Well, Let's see. We have two from the suit of cups. Now, did we have, yeah, on Monday the same sort of thing? We had two from the suit of cups. So we had a run on cups on Monday. We have the same today. And then we also have one from swords, whereas we had a major arcana card, the world, um, as the other card on Monday. Let's see, we have an 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, well, that's an interesting numerology. We have a master number numerology here. If we just look at the cards of 11, which is awakening and enlightenment. And again, when you're talking about Perthrow, maybe this is a wake-up call today. We might look at it that way, depending on how this is applying in your life. Awaken to the idea of cause and effect. Maybe you didn't consider that, and it's easy to step away and not really be responsible for your own actions. It's like, well, it got away from me. Well, if you started it, though, then you're kind of responsible for it getting away from you. Maybe shouldn't have been there to begin with. Might have been one of those things where you shouldn't have been there to begin with. But again, it's awakening to that kind of truth and understanding about cause and effect and who controls fate. And it seems to me that maybe the increase here with Acquisitio may have to do with the idea of the 11 numerology of just the cards. If you add the 5 into that, that would be 5 and 11 would be 16, and then that would reduce to 7. So you've got observation and letting things come to rest. It can also be about balance and justice. Again, we've got some justice-oriented things in the greater society today that will be going on. So I don't know. It seems like there could be a lot of things going on today, but the underlying issue is who controls your fate. It's the decisions that you make and how willing you are to accept responsibility for that and for the outcome, maybe. We'll begin with the 8 of Swords. Here we have a woman who's blindfolded and bound, surrounded by 8 swords. She's standing in wet sand. It looks like the tide has come in but gone back out. So it's kind of the wet, soppy sand that you walk around in when you're at the beach. You see the castle in the distance here up on the hill, on the cliffs. Basically, when you look at this to me, the being up on top of the cliffs, it denotes strength. Usually any type of mountain or something like this will denote strength because there's an observational quality to the mountain. The mountain just sits and watches, right? There's an inner strength that it has. Well, and especially if you're climbing mountains, pursuing new opportunities, it takes a certain amount of strength to do that. So to me, I just associate strength with mountains or cliffs or what have you. And it's almost like the castle is watching her. And she has to get away from all of that. She has to essentially go within, to think about things and to make a decision, to either get out of the way of her own perceptions, which the swords could represent, or the influence of other people and other voices, if you will. The swords reflects the air element, and when you talk about the air element, you're talking about intellect and communication and balance and reason and truth versus deception. And again, when you talk about Perthrow, there could be that in there as well. The idea of, are we deluding ourselves into thinking that we have no control at all over things? Are we getting caught up in the goings on of others and going along with the crowd and sort of losing our own autonomy within that? Again, it becomes difficult to understand when that happens, I think, what the whole idea of cause and effect is. Where is your responsibility? Well, the responsibility was when you got caught up. And if you can't see the forest for the trees, well, you're going to have to get away from all of that to be able to truly assess what has happened. And so for her, I think how I typically read this card is that she's bound and blindfolded intentionally so that she can turn off the noise around her, including her own thoughts, to try to get at the truth of something. 8 denotes strength. You look at the 8th card of the major arcana, that's strength. And it's taming the wild within. It's being able to control impulses and understand that you're transmuting that essentially into higher awareness and letting higher awareness govern the whole thing, and the choices that you make. I mean, to me, the card of strength is really a card of impulse control, but it's having it's being able to look lovingly on that shadow side of self and welcome it into your life for the message and the teaching it can give you, and understand that you have to see it from a higher perspective. And so, when you want to go and do something that you really should not be doing, you need to have higher awareness stop that process and understand the reasons for why you don't want to do something. That could be really working against yourself versus for yourself. So that's another way to look at that particular card. But when you look at that, you look at 8 numerology, you're looking at leadership and greater harmony, which is what leadership is involved in, and also material recognition and approval, also strength. And so I think it takes a great amount of strength to be able to go within and turn the noise off of your own thoughts and all the noise coming in from other people, and to really look at a situation in an objective from an objective standpoint, and allowing higher awareness to guide your next moves essentially, and maybe at that point you realize that with the Ace of Cups that it's the genesis of new emotional awareness, basically. Even though you're talking about the air element here, we're going to switch over to the water element here. You could look at, and I don't remember, let me see if I can find it here, and see if now Acquisitio is a fire element. Okay. So there you're looking at the same active principle as air with the suit of swords, and then with Perthrow you're looking at the water element. So you're looking at passive versus active, initiating versus receptive, and this is going to be a very receptive card. Here we see a hand reaching out from the clouds, which you always see with the aces in the Rider-Waite Tarot. You see a dove of peace dropping a disc of balance, basically balanced polarity, both invoking spirit into form and the masculine and feminine polarity within once you reach form. You're seeing a balance there. And the dove of peace is dropping that disc into the water, into the chalice. And you see 5 streams of water coming out to nourish the lily pond below. Or at least the lilies growing on the ocean's edge below. I don't know. It looks like an awfully big body of water there to have it be a pond. But irrespective of that, this is all about emotions. Cups is all about emotions, all about change and momentum, compassion, understanding, healing, reciprocity, and keeping that balance. It's also about love. And so maybe with the 8 of Swords, maybe she's just been too hard on herself, and now she just needs to surrender to spirit and express that emotional balance within, to be a little more nurturing of her own self here, especially if she's made decisions that might not have worked out too well. It's not the time to beat up on yourself. It's just the time to have compassion for yourself. And to try to maintain that emotional balance that's possible. You look at the 5 streams, and you're looking at the five numerology also reflects the pentagram, which is the balance of air, fire, water, and earth plus spirit. And so all aspects of self are in balance when you see this card, at least the beginning of it. And so I think that there's a sense of compassion here that one has to have for oneself, especially when you're trying to figure something out, and you may have taken a misstep. and you understand that now you have to be responsible for some things that you didn't anticipate. And so it's best, I think, to be compassionate for yourself at that moment and realize that you're ready to make that change into maybe a better type of perception. And to maybe not get so caught up in something that might seem great at the time, but maybe you didn't give it a whole lot of thought, and now you have to do that. You have to reevaluate that. And then, especially if this involves another person, but I don't think I'm ultimately going to read it that way. I think this just reinforces what I'm saying here. If there was another person involved, the masculine side of self takes the step toward the feminine side of self, if you will. It could be that one, in other words, one person is going to take a step forward to the other in healing. Because you see two people standing here, a man and a woman, and you can see he's taking the first step. So the masculine side or projective side of self is taking that step toward the other person to heal the relationship, to make that decision to heal. So if this is involving somebody else, if that's what this is involving, where maybe you've done something or said something or what have you that has caused some difficulty, you're going within to really figure out what is it that you really meant to do, what is it you really want to do, and how you need to see this, and then be gentle on yourself to try to reestablish that emotional balance that you need, and then step forward to the other person and express your feelings, your sorrow, your apology to them, if you will. You see the winged lion above. You see the caduceus here. That implies healing, and this would be the fire element here, being expressed, if you will, on this. But at the same time, and you'll see that in various tarot cards, you'll see more than one element. It's not purely the element associated with the suit that you'll see. And here, healing also involves the fire element. It's that creative spark. It's that moment of creation where something new can happen. And when you exchange, when you get into an exchange like this with somebody where you need to apologize or heal something between you, heal a rift between you, it takes that element to make that happen. Here you have this dual line of demarcation between the home and where they're standing. So they're getting out away from the idea of getting out away from the circumstance itself, maybe, and getting to neutral ground. In a sense, she's creating her own neutral ground by the blindfold and the binding and going within. There's her neutral ground. She's essentially, like I said, she's turning her back to the noise of her own thoughts and maybe the influence of other people. And here it's the same sort of thing. They're away from the influence of maybe where something happened, and they get into this neutral area where they can then let go of all of the past things and not bring them up, but just simply convey to one another that they love one another and that they're sorry that this whole thing happened. And again, 2 is about decisions. So here is the decision to heal, to preserve the love that they share, essentially. And if you don't want to look at this as 2 people, if there's not another person involved here, it's just maybe a series of events that you've gotten yourself caught up in, and it could have been an emotional response that took you there. Here, this gives you a chance for the masculine and feminine, or projective and receptive presence within, to find some balance and to find some healing. Sometimes energetically, and especially if in your natal chart you have a lot of air and fire type of signs that are active. If you have air and fire, air tends to stimulate fire. And so if you have, say, a Mars in Libra kind of thing, theoretically, Libra's going to try to balance Mars a little bit. But the idea is that there's something to balance. And I think that when you see the air and the fire together, you see an energy that isn't quenched very well. If you put water with fire, for example, water will quench some of that that active, maybe out of control type of energy. Same with earth. Earth and water tends to be real passive. Sometimes together you just can't get anything done. So having air and fire together can be a really positive thing, especially if you have a lot of motivation to succeed and to explore new opportunities and do all of that. There's all of that type of excitement and movement in your life. Again, with earth and water, though, it's a more receptive, more grounded, more steadfast, more measured type of a thing, and making sure everything is going to be a positive influence for everyone. It is a little more risk with the air and fire energies. And I think here, we've got air and water where, and with the run on water with 2 cards in the water element with cups, I don't know. I think that there needs to be some kind of quenching of the thought processes here, and to bring that, not the idea of healing, even if it's the healing of the rift within, that the air element got too strong in you, that deals with all of that expresses, in your communication. Right now Mercury's in retrograde, so maybe something got away from you there. But the idea that I think it's isn't it in retrograde right now? Let me look. It started yesterday. And so basically we're I work ahead in my stuff that I publish on the blog and elsewhere, so I'm always a week ahead of myself. But yeah, yesterday Mercury went into retrograde, and so you have to be a little careful about how you think about things, and the communication you have with others, and all of that. They say don't sign contracts during Mercury retrograde. Well, it's an agreement, right? And maybe you're not seeing all of the whole picture of it. You're not considering everything when you sign it. So best to keep with the focus being a little scattered, with Mercury retrograde. Mercury is an air element sign. And so you're looking at some issues here right now where you just want to be a little more cautious about what you do, and how you come across to others. And all of that. So I think that but just for the sake of Perthro and Acquisitio here, I think that the opportunity to understand the bigger picture is here. Understanding cause and effect is here. I think it takes going within and turning off the noise, even of your own thoughts, and going into meditation and trying to invoke higher awareness into whatever situation you're thinking about, and trying to find some I don't know, comfort with or awareness with, again, with the 11 numerology of the cards themselves. There's awakening and enlightenment, adding the energy, the 5 energy of numerology of Perthro, that brings us to 7. And even if we keep the 11 separate and then look at the 5 numerology of Perthro, that implies change and protection, innovation, freedom versus restriction with the 5. So even if we didn't combine the 2 together, because I don't really like to do that when there's a master number visible, I like to keep that on its own. But irrespective of how you look at this, if you look at it collectively with the overall 7 numerology with Perthro, there again is observation, bringing things to balance, letting things settle out so you can really see what's going on. And again, that's just another, maybe a lower type of expression, a lower vibrational expression of the 11 numerology for the reading, for the cards at least. And I think it's just a very powerful moment where things are going to become very clear for you today or over the next few days, about something or other that you're dealing with. And again, I think that it's what the reading is recommending is going into meditation and just turning the noise off from everything else, so that all you can hear is your own higher self. And letting that voice guide you, and give you maybe a little bit different perspective. And if it's one where maybe you've done something that isn't turning out very well, or you're seeing the effect of, and it's not a comfortable thing, the idea is to be gentle on yourself and to not beat yourself up for this. This is something where you simply need to understand the truth about something, and then the emotions that you feel about that, let that be a new emotional genesis for you with the Ace of Cups, and move into that healing space, even if you're just healing the rift within, the imbalance within. It could simply be about that. If this does involve another person, then it may be the decision you need to make is to go ahead and find some way to come back together in healing and love and reciprocity with that individual. It just, to me, this just feels more like healing the rift within, or the imbalance you have within, that brought you to the place where you couldn't understand the effect of your own actions on the outcome of something. And so this may be, again, we can look at this two different ways, but maybe start with the first one, where you're trying to understand the imbalance within, and again, you begin intellectually, but then you move right on into the emotion of it, because emotions drive behavior. Let's face it, they do. You can make an emotional response to something and find yourself in a place where it's like, oh wow, how did I get here? And it was because you acted emotionally about it. You didn't look at it in a reasonable or rational way. You have to find a way to balance those two, air and water, essentially, within. And perhaps that's what the Two of Cups is really talking about. So if it's not a situation with somebody else, then this is probably some healing you have to do, and rebalancing you have to do within yourself today, or over the next few days, until we meet again on Monday. So that's kind of an interesting, I like it when it can be this way. I like it when it's not really an external issue. I like it when it's internal. And today it just seems like the momentum is there with Acquisitio. The space is there for you to figure things out, about something that's been bothering you, or you realize something's not working, and so you've got to figure out, well, how did I get here? Well, it's not that somebody picked you up and put you there. You went willingly, and so you need to think about that, and see where the decision you made might have been, pushed by emotions, but then you made the decision to do whatever, and again, that's going to involve this. You need to have that time to think about things and to meditate on what's really going on, and allow higher self to influence versus the lower vibrational ego doing the influencing. So I guess that's it. It looks like maybe I can see some of the mountains over across from us, and there's still smoke covering them. You can actually see them. The last few days you haven't even been able to see them. Just one of them you can kind of slightly see that it's there, but there's been so much smoke here, it's been horrible. So maybe we'll get a reprieve from that today. There was less smoke here yesterday for some of the day, not for the whole day, but for some of it. And so our new respirators came, and I didn't have to wear it. I just wore two N95 masks out to do my bean picking. The peas are done, so I pulled all that out and left a little bit to see if some of it'll come back. We'll see before we plant garlic there in the wintertime. So, well, just before winter is when we do it. But I'm going to see if I was pulling it all out, and then I thought, no, I'm going to leave some of it and see if it'll come back and grow a little more, and we can get a few more peas as the weather starts to cool down. If it ever does, I don't know. We may just go from really, really hot to all of a sudden winter. You just never know here. But hopefully there'll be a gradual decline in the heat. That's always nice. I love the fall, and so I'm hoping we're going to have a very nice fall here, but we'll see. You never know on the high desert what it's going to be like. So anyway, have a good weekend. And again, it's if you've got to think about something, take this time to do it, and see if you can't come up with another way of seeing whatever's happening for you here today. So. Oh, goodness. And oh, the other thing I forgot to say, there's something I keep thinking I have to say. Anyway, check out the blog. Check out the blog. It's at imsteppingaside.com, and it's called Stepping Aside. And things go up there in the midnight hour on Sunday mornings. And the esoteric influences for the week, the forecast for the week goes up. And the correspondences for work and magic for the week go up if you're of the magically inclined persuasion. And there's also an exploring tarot series I'm doing. Let's see, I think this time it's the Eight of Wands. So I'll talk about that a little bit, about the meaning behind that. And I guess that's it. Enjoy your weekend, and be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.